encounter.
But no, actually,
It feels very
Hello and welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show in which me and my friends give our unwanted opinion on all things film. My name's Lewis and I'm joined here with Kyle.
Hello.
Hello, Kyle. How you doing, Kyle? How you doing this late evening?
It's good to be here. It's a late evening, actually. It's been a long day for both of us.
Yeah, it's been an arduous day, and we'll soon get into that. But on today's episode, I know last week I said we'd be doing an episode on stop motion animation, and that Kyle wouldn't even be here. But surprise, surprise, life is a funny thing, and all plans shift and change. Because Gonzalo's still busy, and Kyle obviously is still very busy, and obviously I'm not, you know. We thought we'd actually just give you an episode from...
so honest.
I know. We thought we'd just give you an episode from the vault. So in today's episode, we'll actually be talking about the best Netflix original films. That an episode me and Gonzalo did, I think 4 months ago now, that we just never uploaded.
I'm not going to be in this. This is the funny thing.
I know. And we're just gonna. But first, before we do the vault, the episode from the vault, me and Kyle have a review for the Meg 2, The Trench, the latest.
It's not
Jason
the Meg 2.
Statham film.
It's just Meg 2.
It's just Meg 2, The Trench.
That would be silly.
We knew we had to come straight from the theatre, jump on this, and it had to be reviewed immediately because this is something to talk about. That is absolutely for sure. So, I was going to jump right in. Meg 2, The Trench was directed by Ben Wheatley and shockingly has 3 writers, John Hobert, Eric Hobert, and Dean Georgaris. And so, if you've seen the first Meg film, of course you know this is basically all sold on the premise of Jason Statham versus a giant shark. But now, we jump ahead 5 years from when that last film took place, and the research facility that Jason Statham works for actually sends him on eco missions to stop people throwing toxic waste in the oceans. So he himself has become sort of an eco warrior / spy. Very strange.
Yeah.
But of course they're still researching the depths, the trench that the Meg comes from, and when things go awry there are now multiple Megs that surface from the trench this time. So Kyle, what do you think of the Meg 2?
So a bit of context, right? There's 2 films genres in the world that I kind of have a very soft spot for. Kaiju films and shark films. Okay, those are two franchises I have a wee bit of a soft spot for. Sadly, both of those franchises only have one good film, and then ever since then, there has been horrific attempts at them. Meg 2, not the Meg 2, falls really into that trap, where we have a shark film that really doesn't have much sharks in it.
No, it really
strike
doesn't.
One.
Absolutely.
And it does. Do you know what was the most bizarre thing for me personally? Is that there was a very heavy, I'm not saying great, but heavy CGI shot the first 20 seconds, which really had no purpose being there.
I know, it's this whole thing where it's trying to show like the food chain back at like 6,000 years ago.
And also they don't understand how evolution works because those little creatures. Anyway, I'm not trying to get into the biology of it and use my 2 years of biology knowledge. But yeah, I mean, like you said at the cinema, Lewis, the trailer kind of sold us on a really kind of cheesy B-real kind of, you know, a bit of kind of Piranha 3D-esque is what I kind of got the vibe of the film.
B-movie galore. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you're kind of Sharknadoes. You know, we've had some really good... The Reef with Blake Lively. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I've not seen that, actually.
I actually quite liked it. That was a cool concept that a surfer's just trapped on this kind of reef and like a shark's just circling her for the whole entire thing. It's quite good. Yeah. And this is so hard. So yeah, it follows Jason Statham's character a couple of years later. The Institute is thriving, and I don't actually remember the first film, but they decide like what's a great idea is we're gonna keep this megalodon caged.
Yeah, they have that. Yeah,
because that's smart. And I'm like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh. And
where this is going.
Very early on, they teased an exoskeleton like swimsuit that had the power to break cement, and I had a moment there in the cinema very early on. By the way, spoilers. Who gives a shit about this film? Sorry, I'm not even gonna try. I thought for a very brief second that there could be a segment where Jason Statham punches a megalodon.
But that sadly doesn't happen.
That does not happen, and I'm really upset.
I will say this: the marketing does a fantastic job, because the marketing really only shows you scenes from the last act where it tries to go full Goofy B movie. But however, there's two words I'll say about Meg 2, and that is utterly lifeless. The film is so boring that, and it's also a film that is like split in two, where the first hour is actually being quite serious, and they're doing this whole like, the submarines have crashed down the trench and they have to somehow get out, and characters die, and it's they do the big dramatic music, and all the music stops and it swells, and it's like, oh my god. And it's terribly acted from everyone involved. I don't think anyone's trying whatsoever. It's completely devoid of any charisma. The jokes and the sarcasm in it sucks. And the really CGI bad. And the action is just incoherent garbage. And then once you, like I said, after that hour passes and they resurface, the film then tries to go, oh, right, remember we're this big shark movie. We have to bring in, what's that character's name? DJ. I couldn't say DJ.
Oh, yes.
He'll do some jokes, he'll do some silly quips, and he'll do a silly action thing. And then we'll do the big final act, and everything's going chaotic, and it's hard to follow because it doesn't even make sense. Why is everyone still on the beach? Everyone goes in the water, everyone comes off the water, stays on the beach where all the chaos is happening for some reason when there's a giant octopus and 3 giant sharks. It doesn't make any goddamn logical sense, which I would be okay with if it was funny and goofy, but it's not. And also the film tries to implement, there's a human villain, 3 human villain characters, I guess.
Multiple human villain
characters, because there's a traitor on board. I won't spoil it here, in case anyone cares. But then they try to have a physical opponent for Jason Statham to go up against. But, however, if anyone knows about the Fast and Furious stuff, Jason Statham has in his contract that he can't ever lose a fight. So having him a physical opponent, where the physical opponent I don't think hits him once, when he has 2 fight scenes with him, makes it completely pointless to have this villain who has this paper-thin, one-line of dialogue backstory as to why he hates Jason Statham. We've never seen him before.
You could have had him fight a shark.
He literally pops up randomly in the middle of in the trench in another submarine, and it's like, right,
yeah, and
okay,
I was like, is this somebody from the last film? But then it makes it clear that it's from like his spy escapades, and I'm like, but you didn't even set that up in the 2 minutes of the spy escapades we had in the first 5 minutes. Why? Why didn't you use that time?
It's completely pointless, and I just found the whole thing so boring. And structurally, it's the exact same film as the first one. I know you don't remember it, but I've somehow seen the first film twice, Kyle. I can say,
How have you seen that twice?
Because I saw it in cinema with you once, and then one time at someone's flat at uni, some drinks involved, and someone put it on, and I had to bear witness to the Meg for a second time.
That's bad. I didn't know that.
That is bad. So I know for a fact this is structurally pretty much the same film. It's just not funny, and it reminds me. I was talking earlier this year how I saw this film Plane with Gerard Butler. Do you remember? I think this was one of the first films I reviewed this year. And that was B movie quality. That's funny and that's fun and that's a good time. It's not great, and this film just doesn't have any of those B-movie qualities. It's just really boring and lifeless, and it looks like crap. Kyle, what are you giving this film?
There's one thing I enjoyed, and sadly didn't pay off. Is that the uncle character really just wants to die during this film. Like there was at least 5 times that he put himself literally in death's door. But that was the only thing. I love shark films, but I hated this one. It's a 1 out of 10. Is it Is it the first 1 out of 10 this year for me? I'm gonna quickly check. What's yours?
I'm also Kyle. I'm giving this a 1 out of 10 as well. I can't believe I hated this film more than The Flash. I really, really didn't like it. I just thought it was devoid of anything
is my first
cinematic.
1 out of 10.
I think there was genuinely no aspect of filmmaking I think was good in this. Like, I just genuinely can't believe how terrible it was. It's just be a big shark movie that's dumb and fun and cut it by 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, why is this like an hour 50 long? It's just
far too long.
Oh, it's just a complete mess. It's a disaster. So, guys, do not go see The Meg 2. And it's not even one of these things. Don't listen to these people on Twitter or TikTok who are going like, oh my god, it got like 0% in Rotten Tomatoes, which by the way, it doesn't anymore. That was literally the first initial 6 reviews. I think there's hundreds of reviews on it now. So already that's a lie. Who are going, oh my god, this is the best marketing they could ever have. Go see this, it's going to be so bad, it's good. No, it's so bad, it's boring. It's really boring. It's just, there's no like life to it. I remember even points at the beginning of the film where it's just like, it's just weirdly quiet and there's like awkward pauses between like dialogue. It's just, it's so bizarre. Even the audio stuff in it, the sound design, like when there's a big disaster happening on the beach and then it's all quiet. I know obviously they do it so you can hear conversations, but there isn't even any like ambient like background screaming. It's just kind of quiet so you can hear the dialogue. It just doesn't suit the scene. It gives you doesn't make you invested at all what's going on. So yeah, that's a 1 out of 10 from me and Kyle. Don't go see The Meg 2. But I guess I have to thank you, Kyle, for joining me for that.
I mean, I've forced you, to be honest. So
yes, I know. Kyle blackmailed me into seeing this actually. Yeah. So
I
thanks.
Didn't blackmail you.
Yeah, you said you wouldn't give me my birthday presents if I didn't go see this.
That is true. Then that does count as blackmail. I have been the second time in a couple of weeks. I've been proven wrong. Barbie making $1 billion was one.
Yeah. So there we go. Thank you very much, Kyle, for joining me.
Yeah, I'm gonna disappear now, and you can talk about Netflix.
Yes, so now it is time for One for the Vaults. You're going to hear me do the intro once again. So this is present me saying goodbye. Hello and welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show in which me and my friends give our unwanted opinion on all things film. My name is Lewis and I'm joined today with Gonzalo.
Hey.
Hey Gonzalo, how you getting on?
Not bad. Missing Kyle for this episode, so sad about that. But yes.
Honestly, this year's been weird. Because we've not really had the full crew for most of the episodes. It's always been someone's in, someone's out. Last week was nice. It was nice to have you all back for a shit show that was that episode. But today we're being more positive. Because last week we did a very negative review of The Mandalorian. So this week we decided to talk about the best films on another streaming service, that is Netflix. We know Netflix gives a lot of shit for the stuff they produce and some of their business practices, which I'm sure we'll talk about here.
Very well deserved.
Today we want to highlight some of the gems that you should watch on the service, because there's actually a lot more than people give it credit for, I think. I think there's a genuinely great amount of amazing films on that platform, and some that multiple Oscar winners and whatnot. I mean, every year they're up for the Oscars, and because they produce some really good stuff, so we thought they'd give them some credit this week. But before we do that, Gonzalo, let's talk about Netflix as a whole and their strange sort of evolution and rise, should I say, to popularity. So you have Netflix, I take it. You don't. Are you a bad boy? Or do you pirate? Are you going to say that live on air? Not live, but
no.
I'm not
I have Netflix. My sister pays for it, so
I know I don't pay for my Netflix either.
So yes,
I don't pay for my Netflix either. But actually, I want to talk about Netflix in the current sense. Like, we all know how we all kind of came. It was kind of the first streaming service to really utilize online itself and have a big library of films and whatnot. I mean, they used to rent DVDs out to people. They used to post DVDs back in the day. That was their own system.
That's the thing. I knew about Netflix before it was like this big streaming thing, just because my dad works in the media industry, and he for a long time was working with a lot of like the kind of like different companies that were edging and trying to find this new space in the internet media environment. So I was exposed while I was growing up to a lot of these services just because my dad was working with them. So like I had things like the first like digital TV recording things where you would like program them and they would record the entire movie and like while it was playing on the television. I had access to a lot of like these renting like digital rental services and stuff before it was really like a big thing, just because my dad was very much like at the edge of that. And I remember Netflix back in the day because it was one of those services where you could go online and get sent DVDs and stuff, but it wasn't like widely implemented throughout Spain specifically, just because it was a very US thing. So there was like the one place we would go to pick up the Netflix things, because there was
so
yes, there was like the one place,
the whole basis of their product. You never actually got it posted to you. You basically just went to a video rental.
We just went to a video rental store. Yeah. We just got to choose what we wanted to watch before we headed out to pick it up. Yeah.
You know what's mad? They only recently just stopped doing the DVD thing. Like I think in the US you could have still done it like through, because like I literally saw they only discontinued the DVD thing about a month ago.
Wow.
Which is crazy. People were still doing that.
I was going to say, must have still like made some money because we know how Netflix works. Well,
that's okay. Because we're going to talk about a lot of the films today. We're going to talk about are really cinematic, especially one of both your choices, I should say. Actually, which is the animated one is actually really cinematic, which was quite strange. That was one of the first things I got when I saw that. But we'll talk about it in a second, because the weird thing is with Netflix is that they've slowly kind of gone the opposite way. You know, they've slowly started to release things in cinemas, like for a month or for a few weeks or like even just 1 week, just to... Yeah. The main reason is for awards contention. They have to release it in cinemas for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
But with that, I think, me and Kyle talked about this before, is their strange business practice of... Basically... They made a film last year called The Grey Man, which Kyle reviewed on the show, and he said it wasn't very good. I don't think the consensus was very good for that film, right? No. And that was a $200 million action blockbuster with Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling. Okay?
That's Netflix's
and they decided
to date most
simultaneously release that on streaming and at cinema at the same time, instead of giving that a theatrical run and then say 60 days later having that on Netflix and be like, oh look, this just came out in cinemas, you could watch it on this. So they kind of... Their business practice didn't make any sense to me, because I was like, you could have at least recouped your budget of that film if you released that in the cinemas, which is strange why Netflix has this bizarre
wondering, because the thing is, I'm not very acquainted, like I'm not very like familiar with this, but I know the US kind of like production system has a lot of like regulations and rules put onto them. Because like that one time where like the government decided to decentralize a lot of like studio power and stuff. So I'm guessing there might still be like a lot of rules that they have to follow. And I'm wondering whether Netflix can justify producing a movie and showing it in cinemas without like also having to release it at the same time, whether they're like constrained in some way or whether that's like a decision
that they made. It's funny you say that, because Apple are kind of, they're the ones who have been like smart with it, right? Because we've been seeing people that don't have streaming services are like having their films available for rental 45 days after it was released in cinemas, right? Because most of the time, like 80 to 90% of your money's earned within that amount of time, so they just go, okay, you can rent it now on whatever stream platform. But Apple are doing this thing this year with two of their major films. So Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese's new film, and Napoleon, which is Ridley Scott's new film, are both getting theatrical runs well before they come out on their streaming services, on the Apple TV, I should say. Because they've gone, hey, we spent $200 million in each of these films, at least we can get some of that money back. You know what I mean? Course, like, it's just... it's some business sense, which is something Netflix doesn't have. And
it's
just strange how they don't actually give, especially the really cinematic films, a chance to breathe and earn money on the big screen.
Like, we talked about this with one of the Oscar contenders a couple of years back that was a Netflix production, The Western, which we'll probably talk about later.
Yes,
right?
I will be talking about that. Yeah.
We talked about how this was a very weird movie to be released on Netflix because of how it was shot in a very cinematic way with a lot of very small detail that like could be completely like just glossed over if you're watching it in a laptop screen, much like or even a TV, like the kind of thing.
Actually, The Power of the Dog's really interesting. Spoilers, I'm going to be talking about Power of the Dog. I think it's a fantastic film, right? But Kyle showed me an article where apparently, because I saw that in cinema, I saw it at the London Film Festival where they have a partnership with Glasgow, so I got to see it here in Glasgow. And there was an interesting stat of people who understood the ending of the film. There was comparison of two different audiences: those who saw it in the cinema and those who saw it either on their laptops or phones at home. And the people who understood the ending, the large consensus was those who watched it in the cinema understood what happened at the end. Whereas, like, it was 50-50 on those who watched it at home, which I thought was really funny. And I was just like, but also kind of sad that you clearly aren't paying attention to the film, that you don't actually understand. I mean, I don't really think the ending's even that complicated. I thought it was quite clear what happened, but
it is true
I got to see it on the big screen.
I've recently been watching this YouTube creator that does a bunch of video essays specifically on cop propaganda and like state propaganda in the US and like TV specifically. And he talks about TV specifically and rarely touches upon movies because of the way we consume TV content. It's very different to sit down and watch a movie than to watch something on television. I rarely find myself paying full attention to something I'm watching as like when it's a TV show. It's usually something you have more on the background while you're doing other things, or something that you're casually like consuming when you're tired, when you get from like a long day's work, or while you're having dinner, like the whole classic TV and dinner Americana thing. It's not the same like engagement that you have with a film. When you sit down to watch a film, you have a different relationship with a piece of media. So it was interesting. In this case, he was talking about the whole idea of like ideas becoming more like not really contested just because they're TV ideas, just because it's just something in the background. I'm not fully engaging and wondering whether this that I'm watching is right or wrong because it's just TV. Whereas with cinema, you do have that experience where you sit down and engage fully with the media that you're consuming. And we've seen there's also that difference when it comes to streaming versus cinema. I feel like that whole idea was like that whole distance was like smaller when it came to like DVDs or renting, because it's like it's the big event, we're sitting down on like Friday night with the movie that we rented to watch it, so like it's like everyone get your popcorn, sit down and watch it, rather than with streaming services when you have TV and film right next to each other, you end up engaging with it very much the same way. And unless it's something where, like, especially with Netflix, and we might touch upon this, but the way Netflix releases shows is very binge. Like their whole idea is that they want you to consume the content all at once up until the end, which obviously
trying to sort of change because they realized for analytics and stats and consumer
very bad
interaction,
retention.
It's better to release it weekly.
Like we've seen the opposite happening with like Disney Plus, even with the freaking Mandalorian, which we put on blast last week when season 1 and season 2 were coming out. I remember it's like watching it with my brother and it being an event. Every Thursday, we would sit down and watch the new episode, and then spend some time commenting about it.
And they had things like WandaVision as well, was like blew up Twitter and social media, where
so like
theories were happening and engaging with a large audience, and then more and more people engage with it every week.
Exactly, and it's weird in Netflix to see movies that are like so much like very much films released in a like a format like that, because the form like everything else around it is kind of suggesting how you should consume this content, when you have The Office and Friends right next to Power the Dog, Like, it's kind of suggested. Yeah, it's kind of
strange.
suggesting, hey, how are you going to consume this content? So having everything within the same platform and having this platform kind of like work towards you consuming things in a certain way and basically incentivize you consuming these things in a certain way. Because even we've seen with their most popular shows like Stranger Things, the way they release it really makes it so that if you want to talk about it, you have to have binged it. Like, as soon as Stranger Things was released, if you Google anything about it, you're going to get spoiled. Because, like, they released all the episodes, so you have to watch all the episodes before you can actually engage with people. So everything about the platform is incentivizing you to binge, to just basically play something in the background, and just watch the whole thing as a whole. And that really is very counteractive with the cinematic experience that a lot of the films we're going to be talking about today really want to offer. So it's interesting when we're talking about the best films of Netflix. I think the four that we've chosen and most of our honorable mentions even are very much films that don't belong on Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's strange. It is very strange. But I guess I'll go first this week because I'm always going to you or Kyle every other week. But so, like I said, my first choice is The Power of the Dog. The Power of the Dog.
Yes.
Which stars,
we know
of
that
course,
dogs are powerful.
The great Benedict.
Why are they so powerful? We know that dogs are very powerful. Please tell us.
Yeah, very powerful. It's an animated film. You know, they're very strong, but not Clifford.
That's the one with the super friends, right? The Superman dog. Yeah, that's the Power of the Dog one. Yeah.
It was directed by Jane Campion as well, written by her and based on the novel by Thomas Savage, and stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Kristen Dunst, and Jesse Plemons, as well as Cody Smith-McPhee. Have you seen Power of the Dog, Gonzalo, actually?
I have not yet seen Power of the Dog, no. But it's on my list because you spoke very highly of this movie, especially when we were doing the Oscar reviews for this movie, about the performances and specifically the visual storytelling of this movie.
Yes. I mean, so basically the main plot is you have two brothers, Phil, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, and George, played by Jesse Plemons, who are both run this ranch and have a bunch of ranchers working for them. But then things between them get a bit toxic and a bit tense when George ends up falling with a Rose, who's played by Kristen Dunst, who owns this sort of tavern or pub or bar nearby. And they begin to form a romance. And she also has she's widowed and has a son, Peter, who's played by Cody Smith-McPhee. And already their relationship, from the get-go, it's made quite clear that the relationship between these brothers is already on edge because of Phil's really nasty, vicious sort of behaviour. And then which is only strenuated further when eventually Phil and Rose get engaged and go to live on the farm together. And then from there you have this whole sort of manipulative, twisted mind games going on with Phil and Rose being the subject of torment and George sort of not really believing it and this is the great thing about the Power of the Dog. One of my favourite things about it is yes, you have this nasty man Phil, right, who's at first you think is doing all these nasty things to Rose, but then the whole film sort of manipulates you as who's really has the power here, with another character, I won't really spoil, kind of getting involved in the mix. And that was the thing that really stuck me with Power of the Dog. Not only is it visually gorgeous, like I think it's all shot in Montana, and you see these great sweeping hills and the gorgeous sunsets and whatnot, but it's that manipulation that, as an audience member, you sort of get manipulated and you start to question, wait, who's actually telling the truth here? Like, there's a point where Rose's character sort of delves into alcoholism, and is it because of Phil, or is that just because of her own habits? And then you sort of question, wait, so is she actually starting to just imagine sort of things? And then there's this whole other relationship going on between Peter and Phil, and then the whole power dynamics of Peter's character, because he's this really scrawny, very introverted character who wants to be a doctor, wants to be a surgeon, and is like messing with like cutting open rabbits and messing with that. He's not got the physical prowess of someone like Phil and the other ranchers and gets tormented for that. But then the way he manages to manipulate the situation is genius, and the ending is brilliant. I won't spoil the ending. The ending that has apparently confused a lot of people. The ending is genius.
Don't watch it on your phone, guys. You won't understand.
Don't watch
the
it on your
ending.
phone. You might not.
According to the metrics, if you watch it on your phone, you won't understand the ending.
No. But it's that ending is just like, oh, that's brilliant. And once again, it calls into question the title of the film itself, The Power of the Dog. Who has the power? And that's what it's all about. And like I remember coming out of that and be like, I can't remember the last time I watched a film that made that sort of, you had this manipulator in the central role as Phil, and then when I came out of it, I felt manipulated. I felt I'd been manipulated into like, wait, what? That was what was going on. Oh, I love
to place with your like perception and your understanding of the situation. Is it kind of like unreliable narrator kind of thing, or is it just like the way the characters interact make you question? Like, yes,
it's all to do with character writing. The performances, the ensemble together here is absolutely phenomenal. And look, and it all comes down to that direction as well by Jane Campion, the way she manages to, like I say, manipulate you, and you feel even powerless in a weird way. Like you're like watching all this situation unfold, and it's such a strange, hard thing to describe. But Jane Campion's direction is masterful. No wonder she won the Oscar for Best Director that year, because it was. Yeah. It's a fantastically,
I vividly remember
mastered sort of piece of work where someone like that's a master of their craft here, really utilizing film and the performances and the whole visuals just to perfect result.
Might people know her from any of her other works, or was this like kind of like her seminal?
Her other most famous work was The Piano, which was made in 1996, and it won an Oscar for, I forgot the actress's name, when she was like 13 or 14. The Anna Paquin, actually, I'm going to talk about another film soon. Anna Paquin, I think she was like 14 years old, and she got like a Best Supporting Actress win for that film.
Oh wow!
She also did episodes for like Top of the Lake and Bright Star and whatnot. But she's a very, very talented director, and I absolutely implore everyone to watch The Power of the Dog, because I think it's great. I think it's really, really great. Yeah, I'm glad I got to see it at the cinema.
Yeah.
Not me rubbing it.
No, I vividly remember you like championing this movie very vehemently on the Oscars when it was nominated, and again
I actually thought it would do really well, but of course there's that Coda film came and no one remembers that, so whatever.
Yeah. It's funny because like when you Google best movies of the year, like in most lists you see Power of the Dog and don't see Coda at this point, and it's only been what, like 2-3 years
actually, I reckon it really bugs the higher ups at Netflix that Netflix for years was pushing out Oscar contender films, and Apple TV came and became the first streaming service to get a Best Picture win.
Because Netflix has been nominated for like a lot of like different.
Netflix has a film nominated every single year, and yet they still haven't managed to do it. They came close with Quiet on the Western Front this year.
True. It's interesting because we have seen like Netflix attempt to like, and I feel like a lot of these movies that we see Netflix produce that we say like are not very much like a Netflix product, they're very much like a film product, comes from the whole idea of Netflix trying to like hold themselves as like, oh yeah, we are like part of the film industry, please pay attention to us, like very much of a marketing kind of ploy, where like the only reason it's financing these great directors to make these very serious, very powerful kind of films and projects is in order to get that recognition when it comes to the awards and when it comes to the like the way people think of Netflix, because
they want to see it because Netflix I think it's because look, they produce too much crap that it's like you can't balance it out, you know. So they will kind of be known as that. Oh, they've got a lot of trash on there, a lot of like really bad dating shows, or
because that's
like,
the thing,
really shit game
especially
shows
now. in the past few years, we've been seeing them pivot hard to the reality TV thing because it's cheap to produce, it's fast to produce, and it gets a huge audience.
Yeah.
We've seen them absolutely dry out a bunch of brilliant animated projects and just leave them there, just shitting on them. We've seen them canceling a ton of prestige TV shows and just going full on onto that kind of idea of trash TV, quote unquote. Yeah. So it is interesting to see that they're
their film rep for years got that. I do think their film rep has gone up because they have invested in a lot of prestigious films and filmmakers getting their films distributed by Netflix, but they have the Kissing Booth films or
yes. Oh my god! Every time they're the new what's the name of the card company that in the US that has their own channel? Hallmark films. They're the new Hallmark because every single Christmas there's 2 or 3 Netflix original rom-coms that are just absolutely awful, dog shit awful, really, really, really bad. And usually they cast some people that used to be famous for people of our generation or whatever to try to get some Disney Channel actors or stuff like that, and just oh my god, and they pump out some really, really bad movies. But yeah, again,
anyway, let's get to your film.
Yes, okay, let's get to my film. So I'm going to start with the live action one. I'm going to start with the live action one just to people with Power of the Dog, because I'm talking Glass Onion. That's last year's Glass Onion. That was a fantastic fucking movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. It's basically kind of another quote unquote book in the collection of the Knives Out.
The Knives Out saga.
Yes. So the way Rian Johnson explains it is that he grew up with a lot of the Agatha Christie movie adaptations. As weirdly, I also did. So I have a very good, a really big love for these kind of movies. Just because the whole murder mystery thing, and he's trying to make a bunch of movies that have barely connection between them. This is not it's not like the Indiana Jones movies where you see the main character, the only one that gets comes across from one to the other, evolve in some way, and it's not it's pretty much an anthology. There's one character which is Poirot. It's just another version of Poirot, and you just get a bunch of mysteries that he solved. And each movie is supposed to have a different theme, a different cast, and they're going for the whole idea of the star-studded cast that we've seen. And Knives Out was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And I think Glass Onion was a fantastic follow-up to that one. I keep pivoting and going back and forth in which one I liked more. Glass Onion is 100% way less subtle. It just goes,
yes, I will agree.
It just goes full on with its social commentary, whereas Knives Out, I guess the commentary could have been lost in a lot of people. In the case of Glass Onion, it goes it just splatters the screen with its social commentary, which I also guess fits very well given that we're following a bunch of eccentric millionaires, and eccentric billionaires seems to be very loud and flashy with their ideas and ideologies and stuff. It's a really good movie. I don't want to spoil much about the story. No. I think we might have done a full review on it.
We did a review for it on this, and you mentioned it as one of your favourites of last year, actually.
Yes, it very much still is. And basically, it's a murder mystery. This well-known detective gets called in and invited to an island with a bunch of rich and powerful people that he doesn't know. He gets there, and it turns out this eccentric billionaire that's friends with all of them is throwing a party where he does a murder mystery for them all, and they're doing a murder mystery night kind of thing with flashy lights and scenes and stuff, and it's we're gonna have this kind of life role-playing board game thing. And he shows up there, and it turns out that he wasn't invited. Then we try to figure out what the hell is going on. That's pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't want to spoil anything about this movie. I just want to say the way they use flashbacks, the way they recontextualize the story, the way they absolutely break the normal flow of like a murder mystery is very much in line with the previous movie, just in a very different way. I really like the idea of genre as stale as the murder mystery one is, one that I'm a big fan of. But like we all know the freaking like genre, we all know how it goes, we all know the structure, because police procedurals are a thing and have been a thing on TV for years now, and they basically are like a more hard-boiled and more propagandistic way of just having the original murder mystery kind of thing. There's a murder, the detective gets to know all the people involved. You get to slowly uncover the stories. There's a red herring. You think it's one. Then there's a reveal. Turns out it was the first person they talked to.
Yeah, we'll just move the camera slightly. He was there the whole time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, sort of thing.
So that kind of thing. We've seen, like, there's literal millions of freaking TV shows that have this happen every single episode. So we're all very, very familiar with the structure. And I feel like... Knives Out for me was a complete breath of fresh air. The way they recontextualized it was fantastic. Light spoilers for Knives Out if you haven't seen it. But basically, the first one, yeah. So basically, the way they recontextualized it in this one was trying to change the perspective. We're not following the detective, we're following the lead suspect, who is very much thinks at that moment they're guilty, and then at the midpoint we realize they might not be guilty, and the whole thing switches, and it's fantastic, and it's great, because for the first half of the movie it's a reverse murder mystery, where like instead of egging on the detective to figure out who it is, you're praying that he doesn't figure out who it is, because the movie does a fantastic job of actually making you give a shit about the protagonist, who is at that point thinks she is the murderer. It's fantastic. It's great. I won't spoil anything further than that, but there's twists and turns, and this movie does a really brilliant job of like doing the same thing,
absolutely,
in a very different way.
A whole inverse. There's a whole
yes.
Well, I won't spoil anything either. I will say
when we get to the midpoint, it turns into a completely different movie.
I also saw Glass Onion in the cinema as well. So another Netflix film I didn't watch on Netflix.
So lucky, god damn it!
Because it was also part of the London Film Festival last year. Anyway, me and Kyle saw. That was the cinema.
Lucky.
That was the film that Kyle almost died at, actually, because someone opened a bag of peanuts next to him. But anyway,
oh god.
Yeah, but he stuck it out and he stayed and watched the film. But yeah,
it was so
the
good
thing that got
Kyle...
me with Glass Onion last year is that it was one of the funniest films, one of the funniest comedies of last year. It was really sharp. The whole audience was loving it. I mean, I wish everyone got to see this with a big audience, because everyone was laughing up, everyone was loving it. It's a really sharp film. I remember there's this thing with this a bulletproof glass shield device, which that's all I'll say. There's a scene with that, and the way that's edited and put together, I'm like, this is so punchy.
Love that so much. Also, just because I have a personal hatred for that thing, because I think it's incredibly overrated. I love the actual artist who did it, but I hate that that's the one that everyone looks at, because he's got such amazing works. And the last time I was at the Louvre, this is going to basically spoil it for anyone that knows painting, but last time I was at the Louvre, I was literally like, people were crowding the shit out of it. And right behind it, in front of it, was one of his best paintings, in my opinion, with like an iconic thing, like the first one of his to show the like esfumato kind of like methodology that he uses to show perspective. And I'm like, why are people looking at that piece of shit where this is right in front of them? So I personally hate it, so I'm very happy that happened. I was like, just as soon as I saw it, it was like the Chekhov's gun for me. Like I instantly knew what was gonna happen. I was like, yes, I'm so happy. It was great. It was great.
The ensemble cast is great. They're all quite despicable and dislikable, but in a good way. They're all their characters are all very well defined. I had a great time with it.
I have one exception. Weirdly enough, the assistant character, she didn't do a great job for me. That's the only one I didn't really love the performance of, the lady playing the assistant. I think she was just kind of thing. I think she could have brought a lot more interesting stuff, especially given the complexity of the character itself. But everyone else was fucking stellar, and I absolutely loved it, yes.
Edward Norton plays a great idiot.
Yes.
But I will say this, right? How do you feel that Netflix bought the franchise rights to Knives Out, right? Because I will say this, right? Glass Onion also got a limited 1 week theatrical release in the States. I'm here on Box Office Mojo right now, right? And within that 1 week in the States, there's no other worldwide numbers, even though it was released globally as well. In the States, in that short window, it made $13.2 million, right? And that wasn't like a wide release, it was a limited release. In the States alone, that's how much it made in 1 week, not spread out throughout the entire country.
Yeah.
It's baffling to me that Netflix did not just give this a theatrical release.
Yeah.
And then, because you remember it released on Christmas Day on Netflix?
Yeah, I remember.
And it released in cinemas at the beginning of November. I don't know why they just didn't let that go on and play out through the entire November and give it away release.
It bothers me because this is the kind of movie I went to watch Knives Out twice in cinemas. Once, I think alone, once with my girlfriend, maybe 3 times. Because did I watch Knives Out with you guys? I think
no, I remember seeing it with Kyle.
No. Then I've watched it twice then in cinemas, and I absolutely loved watching it in cinemas. And this is the kind of movie I would have loved to watch in cinemas. But as you know, I'm in Spain. Limited releases here. Just not a thing.
Don't happen.
Just not a thing. Exactly. There's no reason for them to happen here. No one's interested in winning a fucking Goya. So, like, nobody cares about limited releases in Spain. So, it's just, it bugs me because it deprives me of the opportunity to watch this in a cinematic ratio and in a big screen. At the same time, I can understand that maybe Netflix offered Rian Johnston, like, the ability to, like, choose and decide on certain things that maybe would be limiting in other production companies. I do know they pushed them to call it Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery, which sucks.
He didn't like that.
Yeah, understandably. But it kind of sucks. But also, I am very aware that we live in a world with producers and production companies.
Yeah.
And
I will say this, right? Depending on how Apple TV's ventures go this year, and maybe other studios are doing this. Amazon, to be fair, do it as well. They allow their films, like Air is out right now, gets a full theatrical release. So Amazon, and oddly enough, the companies that don't need the money do this for more money, whereas Netflix are in a lot of debt and need the money and don't do this. It's very bizarre.
Disney's done it as well. Like Disney basically at this point just has most of their like movies, they're just like they come out in cinemas, and then as soon as they're out of cinemas, or like after 2 or 3 weeks, they go into Disney Plus.
45 days, man.
Yeah. So it's weird that those are the companies that don't really need the money that are making it. But Netflix has been making a lot of really shit decisions money-wise recently. So, honestly...
why? You could have made like $600 million with Glass Onion. I don't know why you didn't do it.
I know.
And if you're saying where have I pulled that number from, it's because the first one made $400 million, and it's a sequel, and people like that film. I'm just saying it could have made more, but whatever.
Yeah. I know. I mean, no. I get political in this show a lot. What the fuck am I saying? To get political, just because they're CEOs doesn't mean they're fucking good at business. Just because they have lots of money and they're in charge of gigantic corporations does not mean they're any better at business than a fucking 2-year-old with a pencil. And how we've seen Netflix really not be better at business than a 2-year-old with a pencil. So, they're just bad at business. They just make bad decisions. Some of these things, you can try to figure out why they made the decision. Most of them is just they're dumb. They're making stupid decisions. They're hurting themselves. It's weird to think back a couple of years ago, more than a couple at this point, but Netflix was basically the word to describe streaming services. Like, it was ubiquitous to like a... Really. There was no one else.
Well, there was, but no one to the power...
But no one gave a shit about anyone else. Netflix was the one service that everyone had. And with this weird separation of, like, different production companies just having their own streaming services, the way, like... production companies used to have their own cinemas back in the 1930s and so on, where... starting to see that like really shit like just like that just really shit business decisions made one after the other with divisions and mergers and
exclusive cinemas.
Oh god. The thing
anyway,
I really
I will
Yes.
I will do some honorable mentions quickly
Next
before
one.
I go
Yes,
on
yes,
to
sorry.
my main one. So, one of my favourite films
Yes.
of last year, and one of Kyle's favourites as well, was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Yes.
I thought this was a stunningly beautiful stop-motion animation film.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
It was a gorgeous film, and I think it's one of the most mature children's film ever made, but also quite an important child's film. A film where you can show your children this, and they would probably come away grasping, which is a film which is essentially about death.
Yes.
Yes. Doesn't seem like that's for kids, but
I've been watching and rewatching a bunch of Ghibli movies recently with my girlfriend, and after watching Totoro and Howl's Moving Castle, the vibe reminds me very much of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. It's that kind of children's film where it is clearly made for children because it is saying things and communicating things in a very clear and succinct way. But it's also incredibly mature and does not talk down to their audience, and it's made with intention and care and love. And even though I did not enjoy this film as much as I probably would have, because I saw it when I was feeling pretty bad, like I was generally like sick, like I had a terrible headache while I was watching it. Don't watch movies if you're feeling like shit, especially ones that like you think are
heavy,
good.
or heavy.
Just like
even if it's guys as a kid.
yeah, just like yeah. So even though I did not enjoy it, and I need to watch it again to try to get that experience, this was a fantastic film.
It captures that adult and darker elements of the original story itself, and the way it ends brought a tear to my eye, and the final dialogue, which I won't spoil here. I mean, I will talk about Pinocchio again in the coming weeks.
Yes.
The final line just manages to capture something so profound yet so simply, and that sort of writing is really, really hard. And I was just like, wow, that was amazing. And it was also, guess what, Gonzalo? It's the conclusion of a loosely connected death trilogy, and you know how I feel about a loosely connected thematic trilogy, Gonzalo? Do I love them?
Really well. Yeah, you freaking love them.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between this and Pan's Labyrinth, which is in the middle of his trilogy.
Yes.
There's a lot of similarities.
I haven't seen the first one of the trilogy. Which one's his first?
The Devil's Backbone. Which is a more explicit horror film. I mean, each of them have children as their central characters, which is really interesting that you're handling a theme like death and having children.
Do they all have fascism as like a huge thing in their background, or just the two? Just okay, all of them. Okay, because I haven't seen The Devil's Backbone, but it feels like the connection between death and fascism for Del Toro is a really strong one, which I understand. Coming from Spain, I get it. Yeah.
You should know your history better.
Oh god,
so.
there's so many things when I started living in Scotland where I was like, god damn, it really shows how you guys didn't have a fascist dictatorship in the past 50 years. There's so many things that happened there where I was like, damn, it really does show that you guys did not go through this shit. Not in a good way, by the way.
My second honorable mention, which I wrote about this in a dissertation actually, is Martin Scorsese's 3.5 hour epic, The Irishman.
God, I need to watch this movie. I really don't want to watch this movie, but I gotta watch this movie because I know it's gonna be good. But 3 fucking hours sounds like a lot of Martin Scorsese.
I've seen this film 4 times. That's how much I like it. I know I actually saw this in another Netflix film I saw in cinema when it came out for a limited release. And I didn't go to pee, you know. It's one of these films where honestly is it's the whole marketing, everything behind it is very duplicitous, right? It tricks everyone because everyone thought Martin Scorsese's back doing another mafia film. It's going to be great. It's going to be just guys being bastards and killing people and selling drugs and it's going to have a great soundtrack.
Highly slow and introspective.
It's going to be Goodfellas too. But when you watch it and the opening shot, which also has a song called In the Still of the Night, and the opening shot wanders through an old folks' home, you're like, I don't think this is going to be like Goodfellas at all. And it's not. It's a meditation on getting old and reflecting on your life and your regrets. And much like Pinocchio, it's about death. It's a really tragic film, even though you're following Robert De Niro's Frank Sheeran, who is a terrible human being. By the end of the film, you actually feel very sad and pity this man who's done terrible things because of just the situation he is in now and the fear he has of what's coming. It's also a
like
great
showing the
reflection
humanity
of...
and like
Sorry?
like showing the humanity in like the people who you would think just don't have any.
Yeah, exactly. And because Robert De Niro, I actually don't think got enough credit for this performance because I think people think it seemed quite easy, but he's playing someone who is quite terrifying in how cold he is as a human being and how just out of touch with his emotions and feelings. It's a really eerie character. I think Robert De Niro plays it and plays it really well. And same with, I mean, Al Pacino's great. Al Pacino, but Joe Pesci as well plays someone really quite sinister in this, which I
see
thought,
that in the
I mean, he got an
Oscars
Oscar
though,
nomination for this, but I was like, he feels, even though he seems like a little old guy. There's a point in this film, near the later portion where you're like, wow, he's a sinister man.
I wanna take the opportunity to talk about this because it peeves me a lot, and that's the word, because it doesn't anger me, but it peeves me a lot when people talk about performances. Like, it's true that it's so hard to notice the subtle performances.
Yeah.
We see this in the Oscars a lot, and like, remember where people were giving Nope shit because the main character, oh yeah, well, he doesn't do that great a job because he's barely like emoting and
I think Daniel Kaluuya's brilliant in Nope.
Daniel Kaluuya is fantastic.
It's all eye
Nope.
contact.
And, like,
it's all with his eyes.
That's the thing. Like, I feel like the least exaggerated, the most subtle kind of like acting choices or like roles or like the most subdued characters are the ones who get the least recognition when it comes to like things. You know, there's this whole meme of like, oh, what the first year acting student thinks is great acting, and it's just a bunch of scenes of people shouting and screaming.
Yes, that's been memed online now on TikTok. I see. I see a lot.
It's
of
great.
Memes
It's
really
brilliant.
funny.
But yeah, no, that happens a lot. So like, it does not surprise me because like, yeah, the same thing kind of happened to me when watching the Batman.
When this came out.
Yeah.
And this what bothers me by people believing that an actor is bigger than the role or bigger than the story itself. That actors not there to serve the purpose of story and essentially theme. Because there is Anna Paquin who's in this film, and she's not in the film much. I think she's in it. I don't even know she's in it more than 10 minutes, right? And she doesn't have a line of dialogue. And her character throughout the film as a child, there's a child version of her as well, who's in the film almost equally amount, who doesn't speak. The whole point of her character is that she has this cold stare that cuts right through Frank, and she's the only human being who understands who he is and what he's done. And
who sees
how
through the facade.
Monstrous he is as a person, and she represents like judgment and the judgment of God itself. Oh, Lois,
like the Grim Reaper.
No, seriously.
But
it's all about that, and I think it's really clear. I mean, especially when you get to the end of the film and the way the relationship between Frank and his daughter turns out, that what the purpose of that character was meant to be. And the film got a lot of flack being like, Anna Paquin has no lines in the film, why does she have no lines? Why does it fucking matter if she has lines or
it's
not?
Like,
she
doesn't have lines, it's that her character doesn't
purpose.
have lines. That's the thing, the way you speak about it, it's not that she doesn't have lines, it's that the character doesn't have lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going back to that kind of like cult of the actor that we used to have in like the friggin' 50s and 60s, where like it's Gregory Peck ass rather than like, hey, here's a movie, these are some actors playing these roles, and that's it. That's something I fucking adored in the like the TV show The Bear, which I think we've talked about. That was something I absolutely loved about that show, because I didn't recognize a single actor in that. So, except obviously like the guy who's there for like
Jonathan
1.5 seconds. The community guy. Yeah. Except for him, like I didn't recognize a single face in that show, and that just made it so much better. And like I feel like we got to go back to that. Like actors are
that's the thing. Actors are there to serve the story and the purposes of that story, and I don't understand why having no lines means the director or the writer hates them. That's the character is not supposed to have lines for a reason. And I just that whole thing, when anyone, if I ever see anything about that online, I'm like, you didn't understand the point of that character.
I mean, movie criticism and movie journalism is really bad nowadays. And I'm saying that fully aware
I quickly actually say the film I was going to talk about, because I think this is a very, very overlooked film, and that's Maggie Gyllenhaal's directorial debut, The Lost Daughter.
Haven't seen it.
Now,
tell us about
The Lost Daughter, I feel, when it came out, I liked it. I liked it. I was like, that's such a stray film. And then it was one of those films which I call like a seed film, where you watch it and you'd be like, I liked that. I thought that was good. And then over time, the more you think about it, it grows into something more, and then it becomes even better. And I remember it came out in 2021, and I didn't put it at my end of year list, but I really, really think it would have been top 10 of the year now I think about it. And it stars Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley and
Paul Mescal,
particularly,
because
right?
of course it stars Paul Mescal.
Have you heard of The Lost Daughter?
No, I'm just googling right now. I haven't even heard of this movie.
You haven't heard of The Lost Daughter? I know it's up for like a good few Oscars. I know Olivia Colman got her an acting nomination, same with Jessie Buckley and whatnot.
She's fucking brilliant. Again, like, she made me cry in Puss in Boots 2, so
which is mad,
she's a great actress. I know, but she's a really good actress. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But what it is, so Olivia Colman plays Leda, who's going this holiday to Greece. She's a divorcee. She has 2 daughters, and she's gone to this retreat to really focus on her work. But then you have Dakota Johnson's character, Nina, who's there with her much bigger family, and an event happens, and there is a sort of reflection Leda sees in Nina, and same with the events surrounding Nina's situation that brings up repressed memories in Leda's own life. And that's all I'll say, right? Because I think The Lost Daughter is, and I mean this as a compliment, is a really strange film. And it's one of these things where it's really hard to put your finger on why it's so strange, and I think a lot of it comes down to Olivia Colman, because I think this is her greatest performance. I mean, I've seen her in The Favourite, I've seen her in The Father, I've seen her in goddamn Peep Show and whatnot, and everything. In Empire of Light, she's always a star. She's always brilliant. But there's something about her peculiarity that even at times she comes across as creepy in this film. And it all comes. There's this line she says in the film, and I don't know what it is. The way she says it, I've not seen an actor deliver just so much, just realism and eeriness at the same time, and sadness. And it's where she says, "I'm not a natural mother." That doesn't make much sense to anyone who's not seen the film now, but when you see it in the film,
it's a creepy statement.
Really,
just on its own.
Really hits you. It's so. It's just she has something about her that's just so powerful, and the whole film tackles this idea of this taboo of what if a mother struggles to love their child, and what do people think of that? Like, we all think if a mother gives birth and then raises their child and then is struggling with that child and is struggling to love that person, we think there's something really wrong. That's horrible. How could you think that? You're a mother. You're not meant to feel that way. And I love the way this film tackles that. Is that sometimes, just as a human being, like it's just so hard. It's so hard to do something like that, and to just fully commit to your child 100%. I'm not a father. You're the scum for a 24-year-old man, but it's the film manages to capture that and to manage to make you actually, oh my god, like to delve into this taboo so well. And Jessie Buckley as well, who plays a younger version of Leda, she also got an Oscar nomination for this, also really has to deal, like, her character is more, she has to face that sort of emotion head on, but sort of manages to ignore it. And then you have Olivia Colman's Leda having to reluctantly reflect on who she was. It's a great dynamic, the way the film's sort of structured. I will say this also has a very, very strange ending, which I still don't really think I fully understand. It's something I really should watch again, actually, because there's just the way the film ends is so bizarre.
But it's good. Like you said, it's the kind of movie that like you masticate. Like after you've seen it, you still got to go through it on your mind, and like it sticks with you, and you keep going over and over again. It's interesting. It's based on a book by Elena Ferrante, which is really interesting. So like it's an adaptation, and the way you're describing it really reminds me of another really successful horror movie, the Babadook. That whole idea of like the mother-child relationship, but like, you know, like what happens when like that child is like, you hate your child. Does that make you a bad person, a bad mother? Like how do you solve that? How does that happen? You know, like, it's an interesting,
Oh, there's just this whole thing. There's this whole thing with a doll in the film as well, which then when you watch it, you're like, why is she doing that with the doll? And then, that's all I'm going to say. You're like, what is she doing with the doll? And then the way it all comes to the head at the end, it's really haunting is how I describe the film actually, and it all really does. I mean, Maggie Gyllenhaal's script. I mean, she adapted the book obviously and wrote it for the screen. Her direction is really intimate, and really the whole crux of it comes down to the J.C. Buck performance, and more centrally that Olivia Colman performance, which really, it's one of those films where, I mean, like we're just talking about there with The Irishman, where the performer really does just drift away, and you're seeing this character really fleshed out and come to life, and it's really quite powerful, and a great examination of motherhood and womanhood itself. It's great. Honestly, I do not think that film got enough credit. I really kind of want more people to see it. I think it was. It really messes with your head. It really does. It's a great watch.
Would you say that this is the kind of... I mean, obviously, pretty much every piece of media will benefit from, like, the big screen, but do you think this is one of those cases, like we've talked before, where, like, the movie feels slightly less for not seeing it in the big screen?
I mean, this is the one Netflix film I didn't get to see on the big screen.
Because that's the one that you haven't seen. So, like, do you think you would have gotten a different experience if you had seen it more intently, or do you just recommend?
That's a hard thing to say. I mean, I would have loved to have seen this on the big screen, absolutely. And perhaps if it got on the big screen, it would have perhaps got more buzz, I guess, if it wasn't lost to Netflix.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, The Lost Daughter doesn't say anything to me. If I read something like that in my recommendations in Netflix, I'm going to assume it's like a true crime thing or something. I'm just going to fucking skip it. So, like, it is the case where, like, a lot of these movies can get completely lost just because of it. And my next pick is going to be one of those that for me got completely lost, because I was like, I
will quickly say, much like The Power of the Dog, The Lost Daughter raises questions as to who is the Lost Daughter. When you see the film, you'll be like, oh, is that the... Wait, who is the Lost Daughter here? Another great title, you know, just like...
There's no character that just stops and says to the screen, I am the Lost Daughter.
Like the Family Guy sketch, I am Superman for the quest for peace.
The quest for peace. Oh, that's why it's called that. Yeah, that's a great sketch.
Anyway, Gonzalo, what is your final pick?
Before I go to my final pick, I want to say a bunch of like selection. You know, I love animation, so I'm just gonna go through a bunch of them. Another Olivia Colman one, the Mitchells versus the Machines.
I've not seen the Mitchells versus the Machines. Kyle liked that one as well. I know.
That was a good funny one. That made me cry.
Another film that made you cry.
Yeah, that made me cry. It made me cry in a very dumb scene as well. A scene of a fucking pug being like wall-eyed made me cry. So like it's a good fucking movie. That was a really good one. It took on like the animation style that we're seeing a renaissance of right now. Well, not a renaissance because it was never a thing, but like a really big surge of the kind of like Spider-Verse kind of style, the one that was popularized by Spider-Verse, of like actually using 3D animation in an intended way instead of like letting the computer just like interpolate freely, putting in like tons of hours of extra work to just decide, hey, I'm just gonna hold this frame, like this pose for like 5 frames because it's nice. We're seeing a lot of that, as well as like playing with like 2D effects on like 3D animation and stuff, and just great character designs, like taking it out of like the fucking staleness of the Disney 3D designs, where like they all look so pretty and nice and perfect. And don't get me wrong, I fucking love Tangled. It's a great movie, but why do all the movies have to look like Tangled? So like yeah, it's great. Glorious designs, brilliant story. It goes off the fucking rails almost instantly, and it's really good. It's really good. It's really fun. I highly recommend this. This is like a family affair, or just like anyone can watch this shit. It's not like horrible in any way, so just like watch it with anyone all the time. This is a great one to watch with your kids, because again, it's another one where like, yeah, it's a light story. It's not talking about death, you know, but it also doesn't talk down to its audience
my
at all.
films were too dour.
No. I'm saying it's not like exactly like exploring a super taboo, super mature subject for kids. It's more of just like the idea of growing up, of family dynamics, of belonging, of like finding who you are outside of your in-group, like all of that stuff. It's really interesting. It's really evocative, and again, it doesn't talk down to its audience. It's also does a thing that I love in films, and I think more films should do, and it's just be cringe just because you want to be cringe. There's a whole scene in this movie where they play like a fucking old dead meme that was like old and dead while before this film was even written, because it's the whole idea that that's a thing that they enjoyed when they were younger, like the protagonist enjoyed with her dad when she was younger, like even though it's like a completely dead thing. And like there's a fucking climactic moment where like the music from this old dead meme is going on while everything's happening, and you still feel the emotion. And I can understand how a lot of people saw that and said, oh my god, it's so cringe, it's a dead meme. I fucking love that shit. It's saying, hey, it doesn't matter how fucking stupid this is meaningful to these people, therefore it matters. And I love that, and I want to see that more in film. Also, Klaus, I've talked the shit about this movie. It's gorgeous. Watch it. It's just pretty. It's just real pretty. And now let's actually go to my final pick. Okja. I haven't seen it. Bong Joon-ho. Want to watch that? That's a Netflix original.
The one Bong Joon-ho film I have not seen.
Yeah, we haven't seen that yet.
And I have his box set in the other room, and I haven't watched that one yet.
It looks good though. Might be good. We'll let you know.
We're terrible. We're meant to have seen everything, Gonzalo. We haven't seen that.
It's fine. Normally, it's my job to not see things, but I'm happy that you're sharing this responsibility with me today. So thank you very much, Lewis.
Especially because really I got that box set for Christmas, and it's now almost May, and I haven't watched that. You know,
it's okay. But yeah, I'm gonna go with a weird pick. I think because it's not the best movie in the world, but it's one that I think a lot of people slept on, and it's very similar to a movie I absolutely love from DreamWorks, but I think it's better. I think it does something with its messaging that's even more ballsy.
Say the title of the film.
The other one. The Sea Beast. The Sea Beast.
Thank you.
It's a terrible title. It's a shit title. Sorry, yes.
Just imagine people were like, can you see the film? What the fuck? What's the film, Gonzalo? What's the film? He's talking about the themes. He's gone past the title.
Yes. So, The Sea Beast. Terrible film title. Really hard to pronounce. The Sea Beast. Like, it's phonetically horrible. Bad title. How to Train Your Beast could have been a.
You're right. The Sea Beast isn't a very good title.
It's a bad. It's very phonetically like uncomfortable to say the Sea Beast.
The Sea Beast.
Like that was not like.
I never thought of that. Yeah, it's not the best title.
Yeah, like you could have called it anything else, but the Sea Beast is just, it does not sound good. Like you could have called it the Leviathan and it would have been like a nicer title, you know, like something like any other kind of like word that has anything to do with that. Anyways, a lot of people probably rightfully compared this movie to How to Train Your Dragon. You have very similar themes with the idea of like a society that's built around the persecution of a specific type of monsters, and then realizing that they're not necessarily evil, they're just animals.
Misunderstood.
It's It's great. It's fucking gorgeous. It's like, I don't know how this didn't come out in cinemas. We've had so many shit children's movie lately. Like, I don't know how this did not get released. Like, this should have gotten a cinematic release. It looks gorgeous. The animation's beautiful. It has more standard kind of like Disney kind of like character designs. It's nothing like really like outstanding or anything, but you do have like a little, I mean,
like you were saying with the cinema thing, I'll quickly say this. I remember when me and Kel reviewed this on the show.
Yeah,
there was this sense of scale the film gets amazingly well. Like I mean, I saw this on my TV, and I was like, immediately I was like, I wish I was watching this. I wish I was watching this on the big screen, because I was like, I got just this great sense of just how big these things were, and I was like, the 100%. Way it's animated is so brilliantly done. I got a real sense of the size of this thing, you know, in comparison to the human beings, the ships, everything. It was a great the way the dimensions worked. It was fantastic. And I was
it's also like a really hard thing to do. It was also like a really hard thing to do. Like, blocking for this movie must have been really hard, and like it really reminded me of like, you know, like Rogue One. Like those scenes where you see like like the way that director manages to show you how fucking big the Death Star is compared to like the thing, and like, and I like just the fact that one of the characters is like 5 times the size of a ship, and it still like fantastically fits in every shot, and the way they interact with them, with her, I think, is like fantastic and stuff. Like, I mean, great blocking.
It got a greater sense of scale than even something like a Marvel film or anything. It felt bigger than that. It felt bigger than that, and I commend the animation absolutely for that.
Yes, no, 100%. It does go to show how like the way animated films are made, and I will always say this because I'm a big animation nerd and I studied this shit. The process of making an animated film has so many intricacies that we see skipped over in live action filmmaking, especially bad live action filmmaking, because you can make a bad movie without taking these things into account, but it's hard to make any animated movie without taking these things into account. The blocking, the like thinking of where characters are, how they interact with each other, how a shot moves to the next shot. Like, there's things that like a lot of bad live action filmmaking can get away with that even the worst animated filmmaking cannot not do well. Like, even when you see shit like Illumination, which I fucking hate Illumination movies. I am notoriously a big hater of Illumination as a company itself. Please hire me.
You've made that clear in the past.
Yes. Even they do this kind of shit really well. But yeah, anyways. Great movie. I thought it was really pretty. I thought it was really interesting. I think it builds and creates a really interesting world. A lot of people, again, compared it to How to Train Your Dragon. I understand that it has very similar vibes, but it's a very different story and a very different message. Whereas How to Train Your Dragon kind of goes to this kind of like individualistic message. Like this whole idea of like the hero's journey and stuff. Like, you know, you change yourself and then the world changes kind of thing. This movie is weirdly like, it just gave me very leftist vibes, like very like collectivist action vibes, very anti-imperialist vibes. Like the way like it really doesn't center like one person on like this is the protagonist, we're going to follow this one person and it's them who changes everything because they're amazing and the chosen one and the only one who gets it. Like the way like it just, I don't know, it felt very generous with the way it looked at everything in the world. It's obviously a very like horrible system that it's obviously just dismantling by the end of the movie, but it's also a system that's way bigger than something like How to Train Your Dragon, and there it's just a village, it's a town of folks that they convince to not kill dragons, you know, whereas this is like an entire empire, like we're dismantling grand, like imperial empire. Oh my god, sort of thing, this has been generations and generations and generations of people's history, and like it feels so fleshed out. Like this feels like
world.
This world, like if you told me there's a whole fucking like role-playing book on how to like do like a D&D campaign for this world, I'd be like, yeah, no, I believe you. Like this feels like they put so much backstory and lore and heft into the actual way this world works. Like, you're following these. I didn't really sum up the plot or anything, did I? You're following these kind of like monster hunters. They go out into this high seas and they chase these ships to protect a bunch of shipping routes. So like it's implied that they make a lot of money through this because the king and queen pay them to hunt these monsters in order to make these like voyages to get goods from one place to another safe. We're very much looking at like the idea of like how pirates started in the first place, like what actual real life pirates were like, where they were like independent contractors that different empires hired to protect or attack certain ship routes and stuff like that. So we're looking at these mercenaries, and they're like the heroes of the people. Like they're full-on folk heroes and stuff. They have their legends. There's this girl that we're following in an orphanage who has like their storybooks and just admires them. And she ends up becoming like sneaking her way into like one of these ships, and they end up going after this big like monster that has been like fucking menacing the captain for a really, really long time. I love the character of the captain.
Very Moby Dick style, yeah.
Very Moby Dick, very Moby Dick. The captain is incredibly Moby Dick. I love the character of the captain. I think he's brilliantly done. His character design is amazing because he looks both like he could be the bad guy and the protagonist at the same time. I think they fucking nailed that design. And his whole like arc is very interesting, even if he's not put at the forefront and he's the antagonist for a lot of it. I think it's really well done. He's one of those like villains that aren't really villains, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love the way this movie just says to kids, "Hey, sorry."
No, so I just that you're on kind of on that like for children sort of thing. Another great thing I got about the film was that I got a real sense of adventure from it. You know, like how I love that sort of stuff, and I think a lot of modern blockbusters, action films get that wrong. Completely. Is that you have characters going like, "Whoa, isn't this amazing?" Making jokes and quips. "Whoa, isn't this a fun adventure?" No, it's not fun. You're not making it fun by just saying you're having fun. There is a real sense and spirit of adventure in the series. That it kind of reminded me weirdly enough of Treasure Planet. I don't know why. There's just something about both those films. It could be the score.
It has the kind of vibes
and
stuff,
the pirate vibe. It was just I got a sense of adventure from it, and I'm really glad I did. And
it reminded me of the first Pirates of the Caribbean as well, and like, like it just has this thing where like it makes you want more. I don't want them to make a sequel for this movie because that would be stupid and make no sense. But I also wish there was more movie to watch. And there's few times that like in the past that I've watched the movie and said, "Fuck, I wish there was more movie by the end of it." You know, like those. Absolutely. And like you're saying, like instead of telling you, "Hey, this is cool, we're having an adventure," they actually show the characters having an adventure. This movie has a lot of moments that are just quiet. They're just fucking quiet. They're just showing shit.
It got an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Film at the Oscars last year. So it got that spot. Nice. So it got a lot of credit there, which I'm happy about.
That's good. I think a lot of people slept on this movie. I love How to Train Your Dragon, and that first movie score is like one of my top scores of all time. Like I fucking adore like the music on the first flight scene in that movie. One of the best scores of cinema history, in my opinion. I love that movie. It's a fantastic movie. I think this movie did that concept better. I think this movie did that idea better because it says so much more. And it manages to say it in such a positive way, and it really introduces kids in a very good way to like a lot of political ideas that are incredibly like hard to talk about and hard to disseminate in a very nice way without it making it like dull or like fucking horrific. You know, the idea of these monarchs basically profiting of a conflict that they themselves are like causing, the idea of like this colonialism like ideology just being a thing that has happened for thousands of years. Therefore, we should not challenge it and just keep going. Just go
along
like,
with the flow.
Yeah, let's just go along. It's how it's always been. It's really fucking good, and I think a lot of people slept on this movie. That's why I wanted to talk about this, because we've
Hopefully,
had really good animated
you're
movies.
going to start
but,
a trend, Gonzalo, and CBC is
Yes.
going to skyrocket on the Netflix
Oh
charts.
my god. I feel like the name really hurt it. I'm not gonna
the
lie.
name is not
It's a
very
re-
original. It does not.
it's a
It does not
really
grab
bad
your attention.
name.
I even when I saw the title card, was like, it just looked like, oh, is that for like little kids? It's kind of like Mario, by the way.
Yeah.
Is that for like 4-year-olds?
Yeah.
Sea Beast. Oh. But it's
Especially 'cause,
like you're saying, it's got a lot packed into that under 2 hour film.
It's so fucking hefty. And again, like, this is the kind of like, I feel like this movie is also made for me, because I grew up reading these kind of like dragonology books, where like they were these beautiful like elaborate picture books with very kind of like 18th century drawings of like giant monsters, and study them and like what they eat, what their diets are and stuff like that. And this kind of has that same vibe of like adventurers exploring and writing things down and hunting the beast and stuff like that, but it somehow introduces that really awesome, interesting world, and by the end of it, it just says, yeah, no, that's bad. That shit is bad. We shouldn't be doing that. Why are we even doing that? And I fucking loved it. It was great.
The moral of today's Unwanted Opinion episode is,
Yes.
watch the Sea Beast and follow its politics. It's very good.
Yeah. I am surprised I haven't seen more video essays about the politics of the sea beasts.
You know what, Gonzalo? You should start it.
I should start one. My first video essay, sponsored by Unwanted Opinion.
But look, I guess we'll just wrap that up there. Thank you very much, Gonzalo, for joining me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
And look, everyone has access to Netflix. Go to Netflix right now and stream.
You can literally watch all of the movies we've mentioned
all
right
the
now
movies
if
we've
you have
talked about.
Netflix. And if you're
Pearl
not,
the Dog, The Irishman, Pinocchio, The Lost Daughter. God, what was the first film you said again, Gonzalo?
Glass Onion was the first
Glass
one.
Onion, of course.
We talked about The Irishman. We talked about Klaus. We talked about Mitchell's versus the Machines. We talked about so many movies. They're good.
Yeah,
watch them.
absolutely.
They're really good.
See, Netflix does have some gems.
Just remember,
don't give it too much hate.
Just remember, whenever you're watching these movies on Netflix, give yourself some credit. Sit down, grab a tin of shitty microwave popcorn, and just sit down and play it and watch it through. Just enjoy it, even if it's on your fucking laptop or your phone. Just sit down and give yourself the time to watch that movie. Even if we don't have the actual capability of watching these movies on the big screen like they should have been watched, just make that space for you.
Absolutely.
Enjoy them. Make sure you're in a good headspace and let this film speak to you.
Yeah, exactly. These films do deserve it, absolutely. So thank you very much, Gonzalo, for joining me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, like every week.
Yes. And on next week's episode, because the summer movie season is about to begin with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we thought we'd take a look back at a plentiful amount of summer movie seasons, and we'll all pick which one was the best. A little competition, I guess, between the three of us, we can say, with like who chose the best summer movie season. That's what we talk about, which is the greatest summer movie season. But yes, we just gave our opinion on all those Netflix films, but at the end of the day, those were our unwanted opinions. Thank you very much.